Metropolitic. I'm Scott Stearns.
Yes, from an undisclosed green room in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
This is Paul Sickle.
Hey, Paul.
Hi.
How
Scott.
about...
Are you in the green room too?
I am.
Oh,
So,
okay, good.
How about those Brewers?
Can you fetch me one of those band beers?
Yeah.
All right. The Bros are cruising along, I guess, sort of.
Rough weekend against the Reds, of all teams.
Reds look good. The Reds are up and coming.
It looks like they're probably going to be in a spoiler position, if nothing else, given the unbalanced schedule.
But they're like not one of these tank teams. I mean,
they're
only 10 games under 500, and they're playing in probably the toughest division.
Well,
because the Brewers and Cubs are legitimate contenders. The Pirates look like they're kind of decent, and the Cardinals are always okay.
They are, but I mean, I'd
I'd
say the Reds are playing better baseball than the Cardinals right now. The Cardinals, I think, are 6 games back.
They're better than the Brewers.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, nonetheless, the Brewers are in first place. But then again, the Brewers often are in first place this time of year until
they are a game
they
ahead.
Fall back.
A game ahead of the Chicago Cubs. They lost 2 games badly to the Reds over the weekend,
Right.
and then came back against the Twins today.
Worst thing I've heard about the Brewers was, if you look at them, they were off the charts in May, and in June and in April, 2 of the 3 months of the season thus far, they're a 500 team.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a wet blanket, so to speak.
Right.
But nonetheless, I actually think, you know what, that's, if you look at most baseball teams, they probably have, even really good teams have 1 or 2 good months in a year, and they're basically 500 the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean you're gonna have those stretches, and it's just a matter of whether or not when you're firing on all cylinders that you win enough games to kind of compensate or overcome those droughts.
I mean, if they were so good, if they were really that good all the time, I mean, you'd have teams. All the playoff teams would have 100 wins.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
we've gotten a little bit dark in the room, but now Scott's solving the problem. I couldn't see the green anymore. But we have a few political topics to mull over tonight.
Well, I mean, we went over a number of decisions that the Supreme Court had last week.
We won them over?
No, we went over.
Oh, yeah. I remember it was a pretty bad week for the court.
It was not a lot of good news.
Bad term.
Yeah.
And it looks like there will be more bad terms to come.
It appears so, because the day after we recorded this last week, Justice Anthony Kennedy announced that he will be retiring after this term. So he's done. So Trump gets his second Supreme Court nomination in as many years.
Mm-hmm. One he stole from Obama.
Yep.
And then
the ghost of Merrick Garland is haunting us.
Right. But that was to replace the late Justice Scalia.
Correct.
So that was conservative replacing conservative.
It's a huge victory for conservatives who compromised any principles they had about family values and moral clarity in the interest of getting more of their people on the Supreme Court.
That's why they voted.
Well, of course, it's a high priority for them when you're talking about Roe v. Wade.
Come out and vote for Republicans, and it will hurt our chances in the Senate for sure. Especially when you think about like states like West Virginia and Indiana and Missouri, the real red states.
Well, does it though? I mean, if it's
Montana,
assuming
North Dakota,
assuming they get the pick through the Senate this term, which given that the filibuster's gone for Supreme Court nominees now, there's really no reason to expect that they wouldn't be able to get this thing
done. They get it done before the election, you say?
Yeah.
I think it probably helps Democrats if they get it done before the election. It probably helps. It helps them get through some right-wing judge to make a very, very conservative majority in the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
However, it actually helps the Democrats if that happens before the election because it'll create a reaction.
Well,
and maybe Democrats will finally start turning out and voting based on the courts, which for years they didn't because Democrats assumed the courts were their friends.
Yeah.
Democratic voters.
Yeah, obviously not.
Not everybody did, but I think there was an assumption that the courts were on your side. Which they're not.
Well, there was a point in history.
They won't be.
There was a point, in the past 50 years where that was the case. That.
But I mentioned this, I think, in the last podcast.
Yes, you did.
It was over the last from about the end of the Lochner era, which was during FDR's second term, I believe, So about 1938 to about 2018. So about an 80-year period.
Now, all the way to 18.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess maybe
I don't know. I mean,
recently.
when you look at Citizens United, I don't
Right,
know.
and now they're bringing back the a Lochner Court, and so the Lochner Court was a court that didn't give a shit about precedent.
Yeah,
They just voted for whatever was good for big business,
Right.
and that was the court of the late 1800s all the way into the
Great
mid
Depression.
1930s,
yeah,
and finally enough people had gotten replaced by FDR that it started to swing back.
yeah.
But anyway, from that point on, for a very long time, at least I would say till the gay marriage decision,
Yeah,
the court, for the most part, had been expanding the rights of people.
right.
And I think we just started to see the court in the last week or so of decisions really start to tip its hand and say, hey, we're not about expanding the rights of people. And now you get rid of Kennedy, and you're going to probably replace him with very far right winger, who
Yeah,
Trump says can serve for 40 to 45 years.
You would assume it would be somebody probably at least as conservative as Gorsuch, or in that ilk. It'll be a Federalist Society judge.
Right. And
They're going to be an appeals court, probably existing appeals court judge today. So they have a track record, and there's no risk of a David Souter being appointed. For those younger listeners, David Souter was appointed by Republican President George Herbert Walker Bush, and turned out to not be the conservative that people were hoping for.
He turned out to be a liberal.
He basically
on the court. One of the most liberal members of the court.
Yeah.
Same with John Paul Stevens, who was
appointed by
Ford
Nixon.
appointee.
Oh yeah, Ford. Yeah,
Right. Of course, Ford was a pretty moderate Republican.
relative to today, absolutely.
By far. I mean, well, and even then he was being challenged by Reagan on the right in
Yeah.
1976 for being...
This is true.
and Reagan almost got the nomination. Could have almost become president in 1976. Instead, he had to wait 4 more years.
Yeah, yeah.
So I wonder if that would have worked out better for us as a party, but that's another story.
But it's definitely it's disheartening that this is occurring, because this is one of the consequences of the 2016 election. Is if people would have voted in more states for Hillary Clinton, you would have had a situation where we could potentially
Wisconsin is one of them.
Correct.
That's why
Correct.
we're doing the Badger politic here.
Yes. So they would have
the podcast will continue until Morale improves.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. Instead of Gorsuch, you would have had probably Merrick Garland, or at least somebody more progressive.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would have so that would have flipped the court to 5-4 liberal leaning.
Yeah.
And then you would have the opportunity now to replace Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
So you would have looking at the possibility at a 6-3 court.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the stakes, and for people that didn't vote for Hillary because she wasn't Bernie Sanders, and so I got to vote for Jill Stein or whatever the fuck, like this is what happens. These are the
Garland
consequences.
was about as conservative of a candidate.
Oh, he was
as any
a
Democrat.
center. He was a center left.
I don't know if he was
Person.
center left. He was pretty center right. He might have actually ruled poorly on the Janus decision. Probably not, but he was known for being pretty conservative.
I don't know that I would go that far.
A lot of people said it was like the farthest right leaning that anybody
But that
would have
was
expected out of Obama.
I think that was just Obama being optimistic that if he nominated somebody who wasn't more liberal or didn't have a more liberal track record on the on the court, then maybe McConnell comes around and says, yeah, we could live with this guy. But obviously he underestimated just how malicious they are and how dedicated they are to furthering their own cause. They're willing to do anything. I mean, obviously they got rid of the filibuster for the Supreme Court.
Here. Do you think, in this kind of, we'll get into our next session, but just take a way step back to when we were young children before we were born. If you were to go to the 1976 election, had Reagan won the Republican nomination and run against Carter, would he have beaten Carter outright?
Would Reagan have beaten Carter?
Ford barely did.
He definitely would have a better chance than Ford did.
Or, Ford barely lost. I should say Carter barely beat Ford. I think he had less than 300 electoral votes.
I think there's probably a decent chance.
So Reagan would have been president in 1980, and would have had to
Term
defend
limited in
the
84.
and he would have had to though run for re-election defending a pretty rough economy.
Oh, sure. There's right.
Very high inflation.
Mm-hmm.
In 76, it was somewhat tamed.
Yeah.
Not greatly, but it was bad during all the
right.
70s,
Well,
right?
it was the hyperinflation and everything else.
And the high energy prices
Yes.
and all that. So I'm just
Not to
thinking,
mention the hostage crisis.
I'm thinking that Reagan could have been a one-term president had he won. Or even if it had been a two-term, he'd been termed out in 84, maybe. I don't know, maybe by then he would have been taking credit for the economy just like he did, and then Republicans
So maybe we would have
stayed
had
in.
President Ted Kennedy in 80.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah. Otherwise, a Republican might have, or other Republicans might have stayed in for 16 years straight instead of 12 years straight, in which case he would have already made up. Like, there would have been one. No, Carter never had a Supreme Court nominee.
No.
Now that I think about it.
No, he did not.
No, we always get screwed.
Well,
I mean,
I don't know, but
Obama got two.
Obama got two. Clinton
got two.
Yeah.
Two Supreme Court nominees. Bush got two.
And Trump's going to have two in his first 2 years.
Bush gets two.
I mean,
right,
God
Trump
help
gets
us if
two
Trump
in the
manages
first
to
2
win in
years.
2020.
Yeah, I think Obama got him in his first 2 years too.
I mean,
and Clinton got him early. They tend to go early in the term.
Yeah.
But what the fuck, Anthony Kennedy? I mean, if you have any sense of fairness, really, you're going to retire now? When?
Well, I think people maybe put too much stock in his character.
Yeah, well, I didn't really care for his decision on Janice or a few other things.
Well, I think he steps down. I mean, he was considered the swing vote, but I don't know. I mean, I would say Roberts has been more of a swing vote than Kennedy these days. However, I mean, you did have the gay marriage decision, which was kind of Kennedy's, I think, swan song. I guess you would say.
Right. And that was the end of
He'll be remembered for that.
That was the end of the era of the courts expanding people's rights.
I suppose so.
But I think it's easy for us because basically anybody who's an adult today, even if you're 95 years old, you mean 98 years old today, your entire adult life has been marked by a Supreme Court that expands people's rights.
Yeah.
So
now we're going the wrong way on the Voting Rights Act. We're going the wrong way on Citizens United. We're going the wrong way on unionization. There's a lot of
I said before, though, if you go back and look at like Dred Scott versus Sanford, and I mean, I was paraphrasing earlier, I just looked at the Wikipedia page about it, but I mean, that's a really bad decision. I mean, it really did underline, not undermine, the tenets to have legalized slavery.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It was just an assault on civil rights. It basically said the courts are not going to solve this problem. Mm-hmm. Not only are the courts not going to solve the problem, they're going to make it worse. They're going to basically make it impossible for there to be a diplomatic solution, and force there to be huge bloodshed.
Yeah.
To do away with slavery. And so I guess my point is that, the courts have not always been our friends, but they have been for almost everybody right now who's alive their lifetimes.
Yeah.
And now the courts are probably going into an era, and unfortunately it will probably last much of the rest of our lifetimes, and where the courts will probably not be our friends. It's going to be, I don't know if they'll have a Dred Scott, but they might have a Plessy versus Ferguson, or many other really bad rulings. Supreme Court.
You have to look at it. You have to look at it this way. So, like, assuming, I mean, there is always the chance, of course, that they may not be able to get this nominee, that they may nominate somebody.
Are you kidding me?
Well,
how could they not get through?
Hang on. Well, I mean,
this is a chance of a lifetime of the right.
They have to hold all the Democrats have to hold all their people in line to vote against this thing.
Yeah,
which is not a guarantee. So it's a taller. However, Joe Manchin from West Virginia has come out and basically said he's very concerned and said he's opposing the idea of a nominee that will or a repeal of Roe v. Wade. He's very concerned about Medicaid and pre-existing conditions, given the economy of his state. Susan Collins, I believe, has come out and said that she's a Republican senator from Maine. Has said that she doesn't support somebody that is going to repeal Roe v. Wade. So then it comes down to Lisa Murkowski. McCain's not going to be voting, so it's already a 50-49 Senate right now.
So if I'm Trump, what I do is I put up somebody really right wing. I get them rejected by Collins and by Manchin and all that, and then I run around the country to the red states say, I can't make America great again because these horrible liberals, Manchin and Heidi Heitkamp and all that are standing my way.
Yeah.
And I kicked their ass right out of the Senate.
Yeah.
And then I renominate right-wing Joe Blow.
Yeah.
And they're on in the heartbeat.
Assuming they're able to kick...
I just don't see how we win this one. I mean,
It's-
unless for some reason... No, there's no way we win this.
It's well, yeah. Well, the hope would be that you delay the thing enough that they can't get it done by the
And
election,
then somehow we
then-
pick up Senate
and then
seats?
somehow they take the Senate.
But how are we going to win North Dakota or Indiana
Well, that's
or
the
Missouri
that's
or,
the trick. That's the trick.
or West Virginia?
Right.
West
That-
fucking Virginia.
that is far
where
from
like Trump
guaranteed.
got 79% of the
Yeah.
vote or
Yeah.
72,
Mhm.
some absurd amount.
No, it's. I mean, you have to assume that he's going to be able to get his candidate through,
Yeah.
and then
No, I think politically speaking, the best thing is just to swallow the pill. His candidate gets through, and it creates backlash, and then that actually
motivates people to go out and vote, and
on
then,
our
and then
side,
maybe
and
they
their side
maybe
is
they take the
placated.
Senate. Maybe they take the Senate as a reaction to that.
Right, and their side, meanwhile, is like, well, and then
Well, they've already gotten their victory at that point, so maybe
Right,
they're less motivated.
Right,
Yeah.
and then we retake the White House in 2020 as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really, and then we do redistricting, and then, meanwhile, a lot of bad decisions are going to happen from the court, and they will
absolutely.
happen for a generation, but I think they're going to happen anyway.
Well, and he may get another pick. I mean, Clarence Thomas is not a young pup. He might step
Right.
down.
Right.
So I mean, he could be replaced. I mean,
Now, in that case,
it's a conservative
even
replacing a
even-
conservative, but then there's
Even
also
a Trump
the
nominee could potentially be better than Clarence Thomas.
There's that.
I mean, Clarence Thomas is such a bad.
He's terrible.
I mean,
Worst thing
he's
George
the enemy.
Herbert Walker ever did.
Yeah, I mean, Souter was brilliant, was wonderful, and
Yeah.
Thomas was not. So
No,
much.
it was awful.
So I mean, I think you gotta Clarence Thomas is probably the worst vote on the
That's
court.
at least a wash, I guess.
At
But the
least,
thing is
right,
that
you can't lose.
they're going to replace old justice with probably somebody in their 40s or something. Somebody that'll be on the court for 40 years.
Here's a realistic thing: Ginsburg just one of those either Ginsburg or Breyer's still there. Right?
Breyer's still there.
One of those two doesn't make it much.
That's
further.
the
or
worry.
Sotomayor, or something happens to Sotomayor or Kagan.
I
So getting the Senate would be
Key.
beachhead against that.
Yes.
Meanwhile, look, let's just remember the courts aren't our friends. If at best they're going to say these are political questions, in
Yeah,
other words, settle
yeah.
them in the legislature.
Right.
So how do we fucking win some elections, Scott?
How do we win some elections? Well,
Do we destroy the power of unions to be organized? Oh, the courts.
I guess
did
the
that
court
just
already
now.
stepped in on that with the
What do you think of
Janus
that?
decision. Well, I mean,
I wanted to talk
you're
about it a little bit.
you're closer to it given your employment history. So I would say, what is your take?
Employment history? You're saying I'm always crying to the union? Please save my ass. No, I've worked with unions for years on their side and with working people. And it's not a good decision. So
No.
Janus basically, Mark Janus, who's a public employee in the state of Illinois, didn't like paying agency fees. And agency fees were mandatory fees according to the contract that the state negotiated with whatever department he worked for. Every contract's different. So, but at any rate, there was a negotiated contract, and in the contract it said that not everybody has to be a union member. However, everybody has to at least pay
You have to pay the dues.
the agency fees,
Yeah.
the dues, for the cost of the representation, which means they can basically take about 20% off, which is used maybe 15 to 20% that's used for political reasons. Because the courts have long said that you can't compel political speech.
Yeah.
The Janus decision says that regardless, any payment, regardless of whether it's for basic cost of representation, is political speech, and they banned it. Now, I want to know why my auto insurance company can take my money and use it and give it to the Americans for Prosperity or whatever the fuck they want to.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I mean, I pretty much have to have auto insurance.
Right.
I guess I could shop around and get a different, but they're all giving in that shit.
Well,
I mean, for the most part.
I mean, the thing for me, this just creates freeloaders. So
that's the other thing. It
so
allows the union to just
right. It's not even about the political spending. It's the fact that they can't compel people to pay those fees.
Mm-hmm.
Yet they're benefiting from all the things that the union does to negotiate those contracts.
And the court did reaffirm that they must represent everybody. So Mark Janus doesn't have to pay his dues anymore.
But he gets all the benefits.
But right, if he gets fired tomorrow, he gets to file a grievance, and if the union won't represent him, he can take them to court for malpractice or duty of fair representation and potentially collect monetary damages against the rest of the union. All the other union members.
I do not understand that logic whatsoever.
Well, that was our best argument. It was called, I think, called the savings clause or something like that. So yeah, it's really a bad news. The good news is that we've expected forces on the right to go after our members, encourage them to opt out of the union.
Right.
And what's happened is in the months leading up to Janus, because frankly we saw this coming.
Yeah, kind of expected, given the makeup of the court.
We had hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of members across the country went from being agency fee payers to being union members. They said, fuck this, I'm not an agency fee payer anymore, I want to be a member.
They want to be more committed.
Right. I mean, the union brought it up to them. I mean, they organized it.
Sure.
They said, look, what side are you on? And people opted for the union side. Not everybody did. Some people said, no, I can't wait to get out.
Yeah.
And then the number of, just the first day that I had heard, and it's somewhat anecdotal, but the number of people hearing the news about it prompted more people, once again, to switch into membership from agency fee payer.
Sure.
More than people who had been payers asking to drop out. So I think that there is a sense that unions are under siege and the workers are grasping that and are actually becoming far more loyal union members today than they were maybe 10 years ago when times were easier. So
that's good. I mean, that's what you hope is that they've woken a sleeping bear. Basically, that's what you would hope.
And in Wisconsin, by the way, none of this applies to anyone,
right?
Because Act 10 actually went much further than the Janus decision.
Yeah.
Also, we have right to work now.
Yeah.
So all of our
private and public sector unions
are open shop. Yeah. But for the first time since either one of those laws were passed last year, Wisconsin saw an increase in signed dues-paying membership by about 16,000. So there are some green shoots here.
That's good to hear.
That said, in the long run, it makes it a lot harder to survive.
Sure.
And still
not having those guarantees and allowing those freeloaders to take advantage of the system.
Right, exactly.
Sure. It creates that loophole. So in the time we have remaining, obviously, we're still in the midst of a gubernatorial primary here in the state of Wisconsin. So there hasn't been a ton of news this past week. However, it looks like, I don't know, from my perspective, it looks like to be kind of a three-way race at this point.
For governor?
For governor. I mean, it's Kelly Roy's, Millie Mitchell, and Tony Evers. And you can't count Mike McCabe out.
No, so it's a four-way race.
So yeah, I guess four-way.
I think Vinehout is still showing signs of life. So
Vinehout, Pate is still in there. Matt Flynn is still in there.
Yeah, those guys I can pretty much count out.
Yeah,
Soglin's
a placeholder. I mean, he's going nowhere. But
Mitchell's going on a bar tour.
He's doing a beer and brewery tour around the state of Wisconsin, which I think is a cool thing. Mm-hmm. So
and if you happen to be at a microbrewery in one of the 20 cities he'll be in, you know that you can rest assured that if a fire breaks out, you'll have some of the finest there to help you out.
So there is that.
Malin Mitchell, the president of the Firefighters Union. I loved his quote, though, where he said he won't go negative against Democrats in the primary, and he's going to have some ads soon. And then they said, would you go negative again in the general? And he said, against Walker? Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, there was that article. And then he talked about Tony Evers.
Yeah, well, he didn't go negative.
He's like, I don't want to be...
I can't be negative against Tony Evers.
No, he's like my grandfather.
He's like my grandfather. So, that could be construed as a little... It was hilarious.
It was funny. So
sometimes Malin doesn't tell the best jokes, but this time he nailed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's. I mean, there's going to be obviously campaigns making appearances around the state. We're coming up on the 4th of July. Got a couple days here.
yeah.
So so America Day on Wednesday. We're recording this on
America
Monday.
Day, right.
Yeah, so it's time to celebrate our independence and hopefully get patriotic and realize that the stakes are high.
So
We got to keep democracy alive in this
Do
country.
you think the Janus decision, which is obviously the hope of a lot of people on the right, will weaken the Democrats' chances because it'll weaken the stream of money going into campaigns?
I kind of feel like this thing, when you talk about things like Act 10 and other initiatives, right to work being first and foremost, I think, amongst them, I think the damage has already been done to a large degree.
Mm-hmm.
And, union membership has dropped to the level it is today. It's not having the impact that I think they would hope because the damage has already been done. It's already occurred for years, and I think the people that are in unions today is because they largely want to be in unions.
Right. I think that's true, and I think also the fact of the matter is unions weren't using agency fee money for politics. Therefore, the money available for political purposes is pretty much the same.
Yeah.
I mean, they were actually compliant despite whatever the court said, and I think that actually should be the best grounds for overturning it, regardless of what the long-run damage is.
Well, so maybe by the time we're 80 and in the court, maybe it's a different makeup. We can cover.
We got rid of mandatory fees, and
there's no unions. There's no unions left, but
and no impact. Right. Well, who knows?
Hopefully not.
But. Yeah. Right. But I mean, for working people and future generations, I hope not.
Right. It comes back to, unfortunately, we're going to have to relitigate the battles that were won a few generations back that our grandparents fought for, and people have to relearn what.
Scott, I forgot this is the 4th of July podcast, not the Labor Day podcast. I apologize.
It's all about what's good for America.
There you go.
But we're gonna have to continue to fight, and we're gonna have to re-win some battles that we thought were settled, but apparently aren't. And I think that Trump's election in 2016, I think,
chances of the Democrats taking the U.S. House, what would you say? It's good. 0 to 100% chance. What's the chances?
I'm going to give it a 70% chance.
I go just about that, 65.
Okay.
We're coming into line.
We're closer. The Senate is still a long shot. I'll say 30%.
I'll go 5.
Yeah, you're probably closer.
I'm going way low, 5 out of 100%.
Well, my hope would be if they get the Supreme Court pick through.
If that happens, that Trump actually gets his nominee through before the election, as much as I want the Democrats to fight it, if that happens, I would actually give the Democrats a higher chance. Probably 15 to 20%.
That means Roe v. Wade is under serious threat because Anthony Kennedy traditionally has voted to uphold abortion rights.
Right.
So you replace him with an abortion rights foe.
Threat, whether they do it before or after.
There's not going to be a case this year that's going to overturn it.
But
however,
it's still a threat, regardless of whether they do it before or after the election.
Exactly. So
but the reaction might be strong if they get it done before.
Because then the threat is real. It's not abstract.
Okay. So, and then governorship.
Well, I think like we touched on. I think we have the core candidates. We have 4 out of the 8 that have a chance to win an election.
Walker versus the field.
Walker versus the field. I don't think it's changed too much, to be honest. I think it's still a push. It's going to be a close. It's going to be.
I think it's a push too.
It's going to be within a percentage.
Wisconsin State Senate. We picked up one since we last did this.
Yep.
It's 15 to 18 now.
So I think that's.
I think the Democrats have a 60% chance of taking.
That would be great if they could pull off the governorship and the Senate. That's huge.
I think they have a better chance at winning the Senate.
Yeah, within the assembly, absolutely.
No, I think they have a better chance of winning the state Senate than they have
versus the governorship. Yeah, sure.
And then the trick would be to at least hold that, in 2020 so that
You
in
can-
redistricting they don't get completely screwed.
Right,
like
because
they-
we're still operating under the archaic
Right.
redistricting rules that we have
Thanks,
thanks to the
Supreme
court. So-
And wait till after they get this next
Yeah.
jerk on, our next friendly jurist on there.
yeah, that'll
Yeah,
make it
they're
even
not
better.
gonna. So I'm gonna
Voting ID for everybody.
I'm gonna say watch the Wisconsin Senate because that's almost as big of a deal as the governorship.
Should be a bellwether.
Yeah, the problem is if you live in Milwaukee or Madison, you have absolutely no say over it, so you better get your vote out for
Yeah.
the governor race. However, if you live in far southwest Wisconsin or in northeast Wisconsin, you got a lot of say.
Yeah, you do.
And I would work on the state Senate.
Well, we'll have to post some information up on the Facebook page.
Right. One thing we didn't mention, which I think we should have actually, was we talked about the family separation, but I want to say a big shout out to all the people that got their asses out into the street this last weekend.
Yeah, on
I
Saturday.
was out there on Saturday on Wisconsin Avenue. 94 degrees heat, I believe, and that was without
that was-
the heat index,
that was
which was
brutal.
well over, I think, 105.
Yeah.
Not trying to say what a great thing I was, because I kind of feel like a junkie. But I ran into people that feel the same way as me, but I don't see a lot of protests. I ran into quite a few of them. The numbers were a lot higher than I would have expected. You know, when I held my daughter, I think about it like, what if I had to be separated like that? When I was holding her
Yeah.
at the
Well,
doctor the
I
other
would
day?
hope that any parent, I mean, well, even if you're not a parent, I mean, even if you're a fucking human being who has empathy for family.
Did I tell
Yeah.
you about that when I was holding her and she was getting her ears poked? They were trying to pull the earwax out so they could
No.
look at her eardrum. She's like 9 months
Yeah.
old, and she's, and they had me holding her arm down to not interfere, and she was pretty distressed, and she kind of cried a little bit, and they
Yeah.
got into it, and then after they pulled out the thing out of her ear, she just said, "Dad, Dad," and I held her, and I thought, this is really nice. Because
Yeah.
even if these kids are getting adequate medical care, and when they're separated from their families, they can't do that. They can't
No.
say Dad or Mom.
No, they
or
have basically nobody to go to.
I mean, even if they have a really good professional worker there.
It's not the
So-
same.
And I mean, you know what? I wonder if we're going to be talking about this more. I find it intriguing, the whole abolish ICE movement. I'm not sure it's a political winner, but something in me likes it.
It's intriguing. I do worry that it could be used to say a lot of people are anti-border security because, when we talk about 30-second campaign ads. I mean,
How about we repeal and replace ICE?
Well,
Pull a page from the other side.
Yeah.
Abolish and replace ICE.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something we should explore further.
I mean, I like the simplicity of saying we want to get rid of it. I mean, I think the agency has betrayed a lot of people's trust.
True.
I realize they do a lot of important work as well, like
Well,
human
they have to
trafficking and stuff.
It was the successor of the INS, which was
Right.
replaced by ICE in the early 2000s by George
I
Bush.
did not know that.
Yeah.
It just was,
Yeah, the Immigration
well,
Nationalization
maybe we just
Service.
go back to INS.
Well,
And what's the difference?
the emphasis became more on enforcement because it was post 9/11 era. That's basically what drove
okay.
it. Department of Homeland Security, everything like that. So
I kinda like the fact
definitely
that-
worthy of debate. So
It's Immigration and Customs Enforcement because
Yeah.
it sounds a lot less euphemistic than Immigration Naturalization Services.
right,
INS, that almost sounds like an Orwellian. It's just INS.
Yeah.
And now we're still splitting up.
right.
I mean, honestly, a lot of it's just a name, so maybe it's Reform at ICE. I don't know.
But on that note, so yeah,
So,
so
of course, I thought of it, so of course I like it.
So, and everybody enjoy your Independence Day. See some fireworks, grill out some good foods, spend time with your friends and family, and then let's touch base afterwards and continue to fight the fight. So, good news! I got email that we are up on Google Play Music. So that is a new venue. If you utilize that app, you can find us on Google Play Music now. So in addition to Spotify, iTunes, Podbean, Facebook, Twitter. So we are up on all of those. So thanks again for all your support, and happy Independence Day, America, and forward.
Yeah, so repeal and replace ICE.